In our series of pre-election segments, we turn to a candidate for mayor. After her experience as a teacher and business owner, she's been serving as a city councilor at large. We'd like to welcome Annissa Essaibi George. Thank you very much for being with us, Councilor.
Oh, thank you, Chris, for having me.
Councilor, I want to ask you about the tone of your campaign, because we've seen a lot of ads, a lot of social media from the various candidates. A lot of it's pretty positive about how great they are. This week, you're starting with tough talk. Why is that?
Well, I think it's really important as a city and certainly as mayor that I'm engaging in those tough conversations about the work that we need to be leading on here in the city of Boston, whether it's violence, gun violence in particular, our school buildings, our education system, the opioid crisis, and so much more. There's work that has to be done that unfortunately we are not seeing the leadership on. And as mayor, I will lead on these issues and so many more.
We've heard a lot of talk about mass and cast, a lot of it about long-term plans, when Long Island reopens. But, right now, people are looking for something immediate. We've had 5 people killed around there this year. We have lots of problems around the Comfort Station, which we understand has been closed permanently. What needs to be done right away?
Well, we need immediate action as it relates to what's happening at Mass and Cass and beyond. The challenges at Mass and Cass, the challenges of homelessness, of substance use disorder and stimulant use disorder, as well as mental illness is certainly seen in a very real way at the intersection of Mass and Cass, but is felt across our city in all of our neighborhoods. We've got work to do to act on today, getting services to the people that need them so desperately, making sure that we are also working to decentralize some of the efforts that are happening at Mass and Cass. We have unfortunately created an opportunity where too many things and too many unfortunate things are happening in that one area. We have to do the outreach, we have to provide the support, we've got to get to public safety and make sure that individuals in crisis can get the supports they need. And that happens certainly here in the city of Boston, but we've seen the collapsing of our healthcare system, of our public healthcare system here in the city because of the demand. We need more help, and we need more help in lots of other places.
Decentralizing means putting part of this in someone else's neighborhood. How do you make that palatable?
This is about a regional approach and a regional response to the challenge of the opioid crisis, of mental illness, of homelessness. We right now are seeing a significant increase in encampments and the setting up of tents, especially along the Mass and Cass corridor. We've got work to do to work with individuals in crisis, to get them into supportive programs in and around the city of Boston. And I'm committed as mayor of this city to bring together other municipal leaders, partner with our government officials and state leadership to do more work and have a comprehensive regional approach to this challenge and to this crisis and to the chaos that too many individuals are experiencing day in and day out. People are hurting, people are suffering, people are dying a very slow and literal death on our streets here in the city of Boston. We need more help and we need to act quickly.
Speaking of acting quickly, the acting mayor has just started an eviction moratorium that's locally based, along with money to help homeowners faced with foreclosure. You don't want to do that. Why is that the case?
Well, first and foremost, I don't want anyone to lose their home or lose their housing here in the city right now. We have significant federal funding here in our state and city coffers, but especially here at the city level. We need to utilize those funds through our Office of Housing Stability. We've got tools in place to support housing unstable residents. Again, we've got to double down on those efforts. We need to make sure that our city's residents and our city's homeowners know about the tools and the resources that are available. That's through sharing information and educating our city's residents widely, giving them the information they need, because we have tools and resources in place. The state has done a great job at doing some of this work. We have resources available today at the city level. We just need to get them into the hands of our city's residents.
More about housing in the longer term. There is at least one other candidate in this race who favors rent control to safeguard affordability. What do you think is the best way?
I think the best way is to create more opportunities for deeper housing affordability across our city and to create, I think this is a really important point that's been missed in some of this conversation around housing affordability, but creating stronger pathways to home ownership. We talk about stabilizing children and families and neighborhoods in our city. We have to talk about home ownership opportunities across the board. When we do that, we stabilize our city for the long run. It's critically important. I'm committed to building a fund up to $1 million around down payment assistance to help our families and work in partnership with some of the tremendous organizations doing this work around first-time home buyers, first-generation home buyers, and really what that work leads to is community development, maybe small c, small d. That work is so critical to the future of our city.
I know you have a lot of details in your housing agenda, but when I look at this in the broad stroke way, under Marty Walsh, we had a huge amount of housing production, a lot of units that were affordable to some degree at least. And people might be wondering, I mean, how is your plan dramatically different from that? Because that really hasn't stemmed a lot of the displacement in the city.
Right. Well, we still need to build and we still need to grow as a city. We haven't reached our housing need goals across our city. We also need to focus on that ownership piece, which I think is a real shift in the work that we need to do here in the city. And we also have a problem with the affordable units that have been built across the city, making sure that they are in the hands of our city's residents. That process is still too slow and too difficult sometimes to navigate for our city's residents. We've got to make that a much easier process across the board. The market, the luxury units, and our extremely low income units are in the hands of our city's residents. It's those affordable units. It's that working sort of family, working class, middle class unit that is much more difficult to get into the hands of our families. That's around production. It's also around the processes that we oversee as a city. We've got to do more. And we've got, unfortunately, too few people that are assigned to working on this task. It's something that I have focused on as a city councilor and will continue to do that work in a much more meaningful way as mayor.
You recently highlighted the problem with gun violence around the Bowdoin, Geneva neighborhood. What's the problem there? Is this really about more community policing, or is this about legwork investigating shootings or even non-fatal shootings?
It's about all of it. And it's about working in community and in partnership between, we talk a lot about community policing in our city, and Boston is the national model as it relates to community policing, but that's also an old certificate. We really need to double down on our efforts to strengthen the relationships and rebuild where trust has been broken between community and police. We do need additional police officers, as was mentioned in the article that covered that walkthrough earlier this week. We need additional police officers to help in this work. And through that walk, but I've done that walk that hasn't been covered by the media in many parts of our city. And what I hear time and time again from our city's residents, from our small business owners, from our community members, that they want to see more police in their neighborhood. They want to create that greater sense of safety in their neighborhood, and not just the sense, but the reality of safety in their neighborhood. And it's about violence prevention. It's about response to violence. It's about the work that we need to do in partnership with the many community-based organizations that are on the ground every single day. But again, when we fulfill that promise of community policing here in the city of Boston, we have neighborhoods, we have all of our neighborhoods truly experiencing the peace they deserve and the quiet that they deserve.
One thing the controversy over admissions policy to exam schools reminded us of is that this city has a lot of capable students and a real shortage of quality high schools. How do you change that?
We make sure that every high school, that every classroom, that every seat through our entire Boston public school system is a high quality experience for every one of our kids. We have focused, unfortunately, on just our exam schools, especially over this last year and a half, when we have somewhere between 52 and 54,000 students with unfortunately continued declining enrollment because every kid in our system does not have access to that high quality education that they deserve. For me, as a former educator, I spent 13 years in the classroom. I'm excited to lead as mayor, as a former teacher on this work. And it's about our entire school system. It's about our high schools. It's about Madison Park Vocational Technical High School. It's about grade reconfigurations. It's about special education services. It's about early literacy, especially when we think about building a strong foundation for our babies, for our kindergartners, first, second, third grade, so that they can academically achieve throughout their time in the Boston Public Schools and certainly beyond. It's also about the wraparound services. As a member of the City Council, I have worked to ensure that we have a full-time nurse in every one of our buildings. I worked this last year especially to make sure as kids return to the classroom next week that they have a full-time social and emotional licensed provider in that school building. The challenge is going to be great for many of our kids and our educators returning to full-time instruction this September. This week, today's September 1st. And it's so important that those support programs are in place, because unfortunately, many of our kids have suffered a great deal of trauma over this last year and a half, and mental health has got to be a focus of ours as kids return to the classroom. If they don't have appropriate support services in place, they're not going to be able to achieve and engage in their academic learning and their academic experiences in our classrooms.
By the way, if you were to be elected mayor, would you try to change the new policy on admissions to exam schools that was recently approved?
I'm a proponent of exam and GPA for admission to the exam school. I'm also a proponent of engaging all of our schools in all of our in our entire district around academic achievement. I think we've spent so much time focused on just a few schools that represent just a few thousand students, when we've got an entire district that we need to make sure have access to rigorous academic instruction, appropriate support services, adequate or beyond adequate, really, enrichment opportunities, whether it's athletics and clubs and other opportunities to engage in their school communities. It's also so critically important that we are engaging with our families around the work that we need to do to support them and the child as a whole, making decisions that are student-centered and student-focused. And our tough conversation this week around building facilities, with hopefully infrastructure dollars coming in later this year. I want to make sure that we are investing in our school facilities across the board. This Build BPS budget investment that we're in the midst of, $1 billion budget, is only touching a very few schools. And we've got 125, 126 buildings in our school portfolio. We need to make sure that we are investing in our school buildings so that our kids have that full 21st century academic educational experience they deserve.
Thank you very much for taking the time to join us.
It's my pleasure. Have a great day.
Candidate for Mayor of Boston, City Councilor at Large, Annissa Essaibi George. We'll have more news in just a moment.